Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, what time? So you can go ahead and start.
All right, cool. Well, welcome to Eagles Catch. I'm Joe Sweeney. As I was told, these fine folks here that I feel like Garth Brooks with my headset on. I've got my mic ready to go here. Today we're at Eagles Catch. Right now we're standing in our nursery where we raise baby fish all the way to grown-up fish, and we sell them across the country to Americans all over heck. So excited to share with you what we're doing. And actually right here next to me, as you look at, you can actually see quite a few babies that we would have brought in maybe about a week ago. And so you can kind of see them swimming there. And if they see you coming up next to them, they think they're about to get fed. They're hungry little buggers and aggressive on feed. And so we'll spend about 4 weeks here in these tanks, and we'll keep moving them to bigger and bigger tanks before we actually harvest them, and we'll take them to market. And so that whole process takes about 9 months, and we've over that time, just like any other animal, it's like a cow coming to a bunk, that when you go out to feed them, they see you, they're like, hey, we're hungry, so they come right up and they about eat out of your hand, especially when they're a little bit bigger. And so they're pretty exciting to watch as they go through that process, and they almost get trained to come and they'll eat on when you feed. And so it's pretty cool. So a couple things that we really watch day in and day out is our water quality. So every day we're doing like scientific tests with our water to make sure that it's really high quality environment for these fish to live in. And so what you're going to see here is the water almost looks like tea colored. And the reason why it's tea colored is there's a little bit of, some of that is from the feed actually causes the water to brown a little bit. But then there's also a bunch of algae, and as you look around the edges, there's a bunch of green. That is algae growing right there in the tanks with the fish, and the fish will actually eat the algae. And so it's kind of neat what you'll see in a tank with fish is almost looks a little bit cleaner than a tank without fish, and that's just because of that algae, which is perfectly harmless. I can scrape a little bit off of there. And that's just like what would grow in a pond, and those fish will actually eat that. And they like the taste. It's a good source of omega-3s and omega-6s, which is healthy fat for you. And so there's a lot of science here. And when I started, and when I was all through high school and all through elementary and college, I always thought, man, science was not my favorite subject. And now I find myself doing science every day. And it's looking at the water quality, making sure it is the best environment for these fish to be happy and healthy. And it's only when they're happy and healthy that they grow really well, and ultimately makes the farm work. So that's a little bit about these guys. We're going to go for a little bit of a walk right here in farm, and we're going to see kind of fish at different sizes. We're also going to see us moving and sorting some fish. So like other animals where you have to sort them periodically, we do the same thing with our fish. And so it's a little bit trickier than sorting hogs or cattle or chickens or whatever other or lambs or any other animal that you might have. We'll also see here in our greenhouse. If you're driving on Interstate 35, you'll see a great big greenhouse next to the road. We get a lot of folks that say, "Man, I thought that was plants." Well, we have a few plants in here, but it's mostly for growing fish. And so we're actually doing some other trials right now where we do have some tomato plants here in the farm that we're taking fish water and we're watering those plants. And what we found is we don't have to fertilize them at all. We can just take the water right out of the tank, and we water them with that, and they grow like crazy. And so it's really cool to see that too. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move to the next stage.
Do you want to talk about, I see the stickers and then maybe some of the parts of these tanks?
Yeah. So great question. When these tanks that we have these fish in, it's like, why do they look like that? Why is there all these tanks in an indoor farm. Don't fish grow out in ponds outside? Well, we use what is called a recirculating aquaculture system. And that whole process is, right now the fish are in the water, and fish, just like any other animal, they need to breathe, and they also will eat their food, and they're also going to poop, just like any other animal. But when they poop, it goes into the water, it goes into their environment. So what we do every day, and every minute of every day, is we're taking some of that water out, and you can see it spilling out right here, and this is going down to a filter that will clean the water, and then it'll come right back here to this tank, and it goes right back into the tank. So this is the cleaned water coming in. So at every minute of every day, we're constantly cleaning the water so that way the fish have the best environment. And also at the back of the tank, what you'll see back there is it looks like it's almost boiling. And that is essentially is just a bubbler that's constantly putting oxygen in the water for them to breathe. So that's a little bit about the system. And this is just a very small system. You're going to see some bigger tanks with bigger fish as we kind of go through our tour. So that is a RAS, a recirculating aquaculture system. And we think it's going to take over here in Iowa. And we think Iowa can be the top seafood producing state. And we're nowhere near an ocean, so we're really excited about that. We can keep going on our tour.
How many fish are in each tank? We just got that question.
Oh, how many fish are in each tank? Well, let's go look at a tank with some fish in it. Here, we're feeding a tank right now. Randall is feeding us a tank. In this tank right now, there is about 9,000 fish in this tank right now.
So how many gallons of water is in this?
This tank is about 1,800 gallons if it was full. Now, one of the things that we watch really closely is the water level, and we can change how much water is actually in that tank by just a really simple PVC pipe that if we put a taller pipe in, then it'll raise the water level and give us more water. And so we watch that because if they're really small and they've got a ton of room, it's hard, they're actually less aggressive on feed. They actually fight more than if you crowd them a little bit and you get them a little bit closer together. They're actually a little more aggressive on feed. They don't fight as much. And overall, we've seen that they grow a lot better. And so as they get bigger, we actually will raise that water level to kind of keep a good density. And so that density of fish is something that we watch really closely.
How many times a day do you feed
How many times a day do we feed
the fish?
the fish? So these groups we try to feed quite a few times. Tilapia have a really small stomach. And so unlike us, we eat 3 times a day, and it's because we have a pretty big stomach compared to our bodies. They've got a really small stomach, and so what they'll do is we got to feed them like a lot of snacks rather than big meals. And so we feed, these are getting fed 8 to 10 times a day, and then as they get bigger and their stomachs get bigger, we'll reduce that and they'll eat about 5 times a day.
So how old are these fish?
These fish would have come in, would have been in March, mid-March that these fish came in. And so, and today being June 25th, 6th, and so they're about 3 months old at this size, and we're always finding new ways to keep them growing And that all comes down to how happy and healthy they are. So we're always thinking about what's their environment doing, what's their density, are they among fish that are the same size? So there's a lot of questions that we're asking every day and we're monitoring every day. And Rhonda, who's running around here somewhere, she's got a little dipstick that she drops in the water and it tells us what is our water quality. So some of the things that we watch is pH, ammonia, our dissolved oxygen, as well as several others. And so those are some of the more sciencey things that we get to do day in, day out. Cool. Well, let's walk down. We're going to go to our big tanks. So in here we've also got 4 banana trees, and so we actually have some bananas growing, and what's really cool is these banana trees don't get anything other than fish water, which they really, really like and helps them grow really fast.
What made you put banana trees in here?
Banana trees, they actually do really well in aquaculture farms, and they can grow every year. In fact, you see some shoots of some new trees growing at the base, and also, we're in a greenhouse. It's kind of nice to have a little greenery and be able to see. I can't wait for us to be able to eat some of these bananas and have some fun with them. So, cool. We'll keep going down.
How many tanks do you have total in the greenhouse?
Yep, so total number of tanks is 142. Now, quite a few of those are those really small ones that we are just standing by. And then we have others that are really big, and we're about to walk by some of those, and we'll actually go up and see some of the really big ones. We've got 48 of the really big ones. And so those are, constantly getting fish coming in and fish going out. So. Tell you what, we're just going to go right up here and we can see one of the bigger tanks. So these are some of our biggest tanks here, and you can see some of the fish swimming around. It's really easy to see the light colored ones. It's really hard to see the dark colored ones, but there's way more dark colored ones in this water than light colored. They're just harder to see. In fact, I think I can see a few swimming around in there. Normally they're coming up and attacking us, but I think they just fed here a little bit ago, and so they just gotten their snack. And but also in the same tank, much like we saw with the smaller tanks, we're constantly cleaning the water. The water moves across the tank throughout the day. And at the back side, we've got those filters like I talked about. And then that water, after it's filtered, comes to the front of the tank and then return. So it looks a little dirty, but we do clean it every single day. And so, so that way we've got the best environment for the fish. There's going to be probably a few more in this tank. I'd have to look on the end, but typically in these larger tanks, we'll have anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000 fish, and this is a 52,000 gallon tank, and so it's one of the larger tanks in use in North America. And when we actually harvest these fish, they're going out live, and so we actually get to see them sorting some fish here in a little bit. But when they go out live, they're typically going to major metropolitan areas like New York City. We've got 10,000 pounds of fish next week going to New York City. We have a number that are going to Toronto, Chicago, Houston, and that's just to name a few. And so these are going across the country, live, and when they get to those places, they're actually displayed in store, swimming around. And so when you go in, you'd actually go and say, I want that one right there, and they net it out like you're at Walmart, and then they take it home. So that's where a lot of them end up.
How much do they weigh when you harvest them?
How much do they weigh when we harvest them? So we'll harvest anywhere between 1.5 pounds to about 2 pounds. So another interesting thing is that most of what we do is in metric. So we use grams instead of pounds. And so if grams, we'd send them out about 700 grams, which is about 1.7 pounds. And so we're constantly doing those conversions. And so that's been kind of a fun learning process for as well. I loved math growing up, and so that was my subject. And so I've learned science as we've done this. But yeah, there's a lot of math and science that goes into what we do. Cool. And we'll go down, and we're going to go look at some fish getting sorted. Yeah, I sure can. I'm gonna grab this half-used bag here real quick. Sorry, I'm tethered right now. So the feed that we're using has got a lot of soybeans in it. So much like these have been grown right here in Iowa, in some of the corn and soybean fields. And so the feed that we're using is little small pellets, and we want to make sure that the pellet is small enough that they can chew it, but then big enough that they're really able to attack it. The other thing is this feed floats, and so when it throws it on the water, it stays on the surface of the water, so that way the fish have plenty of time to actually go up and grab it. If you want, we can even throw a little bit of this at the fish if you want. I think these guys just got fed a little bit ago, so we'll see if they're hungry. So as we throw this out, these pellets are going to float, and so you can watch them there, and then the fish will come up and grab them right off the surface. They're not very hungry right now. You see a few going after it. Oh, there they go. A few of them found them. Cool.
We have another question. Do you raise only tilapia?
Yeah, we only raise tilapia right now. We could raise a whole bunch of different types of fish. But right now, tilapia they're a really great fish for doing a number of things with. They're great at growing, and they have a good market value. And so when we actually sell them, we want to sell them for a high price compared to what it actually takes to grow them. So we've looked at a number of other fish. For example, catfish that grow really well in ponds outside. Those are done a lot in southeast, like in Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, to name a few. And then, I think we've also grown barramundi in the past. We looked at walleye because walleye is a really popular fish. One of the things that we found with walleye is that they get scared really easy. And so let's say you slam the door on your building, or you drop something that's really loud, they'll get so scared and so stressed out that they'll have a really hard time being able to do anything or wanting to eat or anything. And so it's one fish, while it's a really great product, doesn't grow very well in this type of system, but tilapia do really, really well. And so I think another one, there's a handful of folks here in Iowa and in the Midwest that are growing shrimp, which is a really interesting and really cool product. But we really felt that tilapia is a really great fish that also produces really well. It's relatively, it's hardy, so they're kind of they're tolerant, so that way, you know, if I drop something or maybe our water quality isn't the best, they're going to be just fine. And so that's why we think that tilapia are really great fish to keep growing with. Cool. So our floors are a little wet and they've got algae growing on them, which is completely harmless. In fact, wish we could feed it. So this is a splash zone, but they're sorting the fish. So the big ones are going into the metal tote right here in front of us, and the small ones are going into the tote to the right. And so that way we're able to, you know, when we want to sell fish, that we've got them all over a certain size, and then also so that way the ones that are small can keep on growing. Hey, you guys got a glove I could borrow? Yeah. We got a runner here. Right now we're going to be so far this year we'll harvest about 2 million pounds. Next year we're going to do about 5 million pounds. And we'll go ahead and get out of these guys' way.
How many people work here?
How many people work here? So we have about 29 people employed right now. And of which we have a couple people that are here overnight, and then we also have a handful of folks that come in after like 5 p.m. and we'll actually feed the fish a couple more times. And so the fish, since we're in a greenhouse, they can see the sun, or they can at least get the light pattern. So early in the morning when the sun is rising, it's also bringing up the light in the greenhouse. And so they like to get up just like all the rest of us, but they like when that sun comes out, they get up. And when the sun goes down, they go to sleep. And so we want to feed when it's light out and when they're waking up. And so they're really sensitive to those light patterns, and just like the rest of us, you know, we get sensitive to that. So let's say during the winter time that there's less sunlight, they're a little bit less productive because they're not awake as long and they're not eating as much. And so those are some of the things that we, you know, deal with throughout the year.
What's the life like from when you get them to when they leave? How many months, days?
Yeah. So typically the fish are actually here at the farm between 7 to 9 months. And so, you know, that's been kind of fun to play with. And the faster they grow, then the shorter amount of time. And then that means that the business and the farm does better. But also if they grow really fast, that means that we took really good care of them. So we're always trying to make sure that we're taking care of them, doing all of our science projects, making sure that they've got the best environment for them to live in.
I guess for people that work here, they have to have a certain level of education. I think there's a lot of young workers here. Do they come out of high school?
Yeah. So we've had a really great, we got a really great group of folks that work here, and we've got them all from high school age on up. And so, in fact, our gal that does water quality, you know, there's a really wide range of ages of people that work here. And so it's really been a great environment for all types to be able to come and work here, because it's not typically as much heavy lifting maybe in some other farm situations, So, but it takes a little more thought and brain power than muscle. And so that's been kind of something interesting to watch. And so that's, all are welcome,
Can you talk about biosecurity a little bit?
Yeah. So when we came in today, I've got shoes that are dedicated for inside the farm. They never go outside. And when the crew here came in, never been in the fish farm, we're really careful about the spread of disease. And so just like we're going through with the coronavirus, when we do social distancing, that's to limit the amount of spread of that disease. And so we're really careful when people come in. Let's say they went swimming out in the lake, and if they came right in, they could be bringing a disease from a natural or a fish that's out in those ponds into our farm. And so, unknowingly, you guys might have stepped in a puddle outside or something that had a disease. And so when we came in, we put on these booties on your shoes to basically protect the farm from the diseases that you might have brought in accidentally. The other thing we did is we hand sanitized on the way in. And then if any of our workers that are wearing those maroon jumpsuits or scrubs, that means that they showered in. So when they came into the facility in the morning, they showered first to basically clean them. Any disease that they might have on their hands or a germ that they might have gets washed off. So that way when they're in there and they're handling the fish, they're not, giving them some sort of disease. And so that's really important to us because there's been a lot of challenges that all farms have had as a result of disease. And so we're really careful about making sure we don't get those kinds of diseases in our farm.
And you mentioned just a little bit about where the fish go, but how often do they come and pick the fish up? And then do you sell to local places as well as out of state?
Yeah, so we're bringing fish in every other week, and so those are actually being flown to us, and we pick them up at the Omaha airport, and we'll send a couple of our people to go get those fish, bring them here, and then we get them into the water. So they're like bagged up. So if you go to Walmart or another store where they've got fish for sale, they'll net them out, they'll put them in a nice little baggie. They'll put a little bit of extra oxygen in that water, so fish, just like every other animal, have to breathe. And so that's the same thing, is they bag them up. They got this great big bag, and they'll put, since they're really, really small, they'll put like hundreds of them in a bag, and then they'll blow up that bag with pure oxygen, make sure they have something to breathe on that when they're being transported. And then they're boxed in styrofoam coolers, so that way it keeps temperature, because they're also really temperature sensitive. And so, and then they actually put them on an airplane, and they fly, and we pick them up in Omaha. We'll get them here. We'll gently set that bag in the water, so that way the temperature, there might be a little bit of a temperature difference. So imagine if you're in a warm pool, let's say you're in a hot tub, and you go and you jump in the cold pool, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so cold. But if you just go straight to the pool, it feels all right. And so that's why we got to be really careful with that temperature change with the fish, is there might be in a little bit cooler bag. We set them in our water, which is warmer. We want that water to kind of slowly come up. So it's not like you're jumping from a hot tub to a cold tub. And to kind of make it easier on them, make them more comfortable through that transition. And then we'll slowly mix that water, so that way it's a little bit easier for them to, to come into our farm and do well. So.
Let's show us big fish that you sell, like the size we can actually see them for those that are big.
Yeah, absolutely. So that fish I just picked up off the ground was a market weight one. We can go look at, they're probably going to empty that tote that they just pulled out of here. They're going to go empty that into one of our other tanks. So you might be able to get a glimpse of a couple of those.
And after we look at that, we can take maybe a couple more questions and then wrap up.
Cool. So the reason why I decided to get into fish farming was because right now the United States, we import over 90% of all of our seafood. And so there's a ton of fish that are coming from across the world here to America. And so one of the challenges that we've had with that is when they come from around the world, they've been frozen and thawed and handled and have had to travel a really long way. And so when they have to travel that far, sometimes the quality isn't the best. And here in the Midwest, since we're nowhere near an ocean, fresh seafood is really a challenge to get. And so we want to provide that really fresh seafood right here in Iowa and in the Midwest. And so that's really why we got in the business. And we just want to make an affordable and healthy product for families. Get out of these guys' way. I'm going to ask Martel here. Hey, Martel, could we maybe grab a market weight fish just so we can show on camera?
All right.
Thank you. Martel's one of our best and brightest here. He's really good at what he does. He's got one. I don't think we don't need to take it out of the net. We can just show it in the net.
All right, so these are our market guys. Normally they get colossal, but this is a nice sized guy right here. We make sure to keep down the damage to the scales because we like these guys to look as lovely as possible, especially going into our vendors. You want to see the other side? Beautiful guy. I love the scale shine, I really do. Shows you actually been feeding them well and they've been taken good care of, and we're going to keep that going. Cool. All right.
Thank you, Martel.
Absolutely. How you guys doing?
Good, you?
All right, I'm enjoying it. Soaked, but I love it.
He's soaked, isn't he?
Hey, you know what? They were sitting like, which one of us are getting up there with the cameras coming? I'm like, dude, I don't mind. We're going to all get wet today.
Good deal. So this tank is actually empty, so there's no fish in this one. If we go down a little bit.
Alright, do you have any last words you want to say?
Well, I'm just really excited to be here with you guys today. Always encourage everybody to be active in 4-H, and when you get high school age, to be involved in FFA. Really great programs. That's where I got my start and really started to understand agriculture and what we're doing here on farm. So if you're ever looking for a 4-H or FFA project, we're happy to help if aquaculture is one of your interests.